Hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Insurance Nexus webinar, How to Engage Customers, Innovative Strategies for Insurance Carriers. My name is Margaret Ressi-Milkent. I'm Managing Partner with the Jacobson Group, and I'm delighted to welcome all of you today to what I promise will be a very powerful dialogue. So get prepared to build your toolkit and to be inspired. We all know that it's no secret that when insurance carriers truly engage their customers, the opportunities are endless. From active risk management and two-way communication to increased customer satisfaction. So today we have the privilege of welcoming two very talented and powerful voices and leaders in this space. And I will introduce both of them to you right now. They will then give you their viewpoints, and then we'll open up to some Q&A and roundtable discussion via this webinar. So let me welcome and introduce our speakers, Vesta Bovair, Executive Vice President, Customer Innovation Group for National Life Group, and Jane Wang, the CEO of Optimity. I'm happy to give you a background on Vesta. She is a global financial services leader with a 20-plus year success track record partnering with senior executive teams to create sustainable value through leadership and innovation. What is a hallmark of Vesta's career is that she is a strategic thinker. She operates with both heart and head and practical collaboration to align business mission and growth targets with technological innovation, a global talent base, and regulatory requirements. A warm welcome to you, Vesta. And next, we have Jane Wang. Jane is the CEO of Optimity, a digital platform for insurers to cross-sell and provide personalized mobile-first support for policyholders throughout their life journey. Prior to Optimity, Jane has worked holistically on a global basis in clinical trials as a technologist and risk specialist, innovating in digital engagement for patients in North America, Asia, and the EU. She is focused on improving morbidity and mortality. And with that, I am going to ask Vesta to kick off and to lead us and start building that toolkit. Vesta?
Thank you, Margaret. These are exciting times in our industry, and I'm very happy to be with you today. My role at National Life is to create a transformative customer experience which is scalable and digitally enabled. At National Life, we have a 170-year history of innovation, protecting our customers and their loved ones in case they die too soon, live too long, or become ill. This year, our theme is Dare to Disrupt, and this webinar about innovative customer engagement strategies for insurance carriers seems perfectly timed. So I'm going to break down customer engagement into 3 steps and then hand it over to Jane. These steps are at a high enough level that they can apply to all parts of our industry, and I hope that they'll be of value to you, whether you're just dipping into this webinar to learn about the topic or this is your daily passion. So first, you need to have a vision of the customer experience that you want to create. Ours is about creating peace of mind, and this involves understanding the customer, minimizing their effort, and delivering service which is above and beyond their expectations. We want them to feel that they are important to us, that we know how valuable their time is, and that they can have confidence in us because we show up every day, each and every day, through whichever channel they want to be served, and we take care of them. For example, this feeling comes through when we think about a new business application. It's not just another transaction for us to complete. It represents 3 families: the applicants, the agents, and one of our own. And we need to treat that application with that sense of urgency and care. We ask ourselves, Does that feeling come through in our correspondence and in our actions? This vision is an aspiration. We do and we will also sometimes still be getting it wrong, but we're still not afraid to have that vision of creating peace of mind at each and every touch that we have with a customer. Sometimes it's scary to set these big dreams and aspirations. They are the touchstones of our character, and the same is true of our industry. This sort of aspiration will propel our change. We have the attitude that we're better today than we were yesterday, and tomorrow will be better than we are today. And we help each other. We can help each other in our industry by being a mirror, listening to, and acting on the feedback that we receive. So the first thing is, do you have a vision for customer experience that you intentionally want to create? And do you and the teammates in your firm live it? Second is building the capability to know your customer. We've all been conditioned by our mobile devices and a wide variety of fantastic apps. We expect that our digital interactions are effortless and personalized. We want simple and intuitive. Our customers expect that when they interact with us, regardless of the channel or the reason for connecting, that we know them. We know all about them right then and right there. Don't tell me that you need to look it up or you're going to get back to me. I want it now. And today, more than ever, because of cybersecurity threats, our interactions start at an awkward place with a customer. We're authenticating them, and this requires a single source of truth about our customers' contact data, a physical address, an email address, a mobile telephone number. This data is fundamental to protecting our customers' identity and financial assets. And in some parts of our industry, it's easier than others to acquire and maintain it due to the frequency of interaction. So this basic data is then combined with account and historical transaction information, creating a customer 360. This sounds easy, but it's often difficult given our industry's legacy architecture. And fortunately, technology is helping us by providing a common view across multiple systems and databases while minimizing cost and speeding up implementation. This Customer 360 is table stakes because it allows us to connect personally with our customers. And I want you to remember to keep your definition of customer broad. It's not just your policyholders or their beneficiaries. It's also agents, third-party administrators, and many more key stakeholders. Knowing your customer has another dimension, and that's thinking through their needs and their journey. And this happens throughout the whole company. It's a strategy that finds expression in every department and every step of the customer's journey. And sometimes this is indirect for your teammates. It's important to help everyone to feel that they are a part of customer engagement, even if that's indirectly, because it gives new meaning to the work that they do. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to call out the many unsung heroines and heroes in our organizations. First, there are those who focus on data, infrastructure, and governance. They make it easy for us. They visualize information about our customers, and they teach us many new approaches because of the data that they see, in the patterns that they see in the data. And then second, there are those teammates who interact with our customers every day. They bring the data to life using their remarkable human skills to create experiences that express our vision. So now you have your vision and you know your customer. And the third, which is the last one, is all about earning the right to have a relationship. Now, this is a big topic, so I'll break it down into some simple, practical ways to demonstrate that you care enough about your customer to have earned the right to have that further conversation. For example, when a customer calls in, do you take the time to help them download a mobile app or connect them to the website? Offer, even if they don't ask for it. This empowers them to transact whenever and wherever they wish. Show them the range of information, helpful information that you've made available to them. Second, make it easy for your agents to see what their customers are doing online and offline. Offer them the ability to set text alerts or to see a portfolio of customer activity. You may also be in an industry or part of the industry where some activities are more complicated than others because of regulations or taxes. Let your customer begin those activities in whatever channel they choose and then intervene to assist them as required. Number 4, provide online tools like persona marketing so it makes it easier for customers to understand what people like them are purchasing. Or how about simple scenario planning tools or calculators so that they can explore their options before they call an agent or call you as a carrier. And then finally, contribute to the communities in which your customers live. This is also a great way of attracting talent to our industry. There are many variations of value-added services of building trust and relationships. These are just a few. Expectations are constantly evolving, and what's meaningful to customers may also depend on where they are in their life cycle. So in summary, customer engagement is first and foremost emotional. These strategies begin in our heart, not in our heads. Our teammates need to feel at work, to aspire to create empathy and to serve. Their behaviors create the connections and the relationships with our customers. Now, I know there's a lot of thinking and building behind the scenes, and our industry for centuries has proven our analytical abilities. We have super smart people who have engineered complexity into our products, and now we have another kind of super smart people who are making those products easy to understand and to use. If you pick up almost any customer engagement or industry study, you will read about how low the insurance industry still scores in providing service. And this is despite the pride that many of us take in the improvements that we've made. The world around us is moving faster, and we need to keep picking up our game. It was remarkable for me recently to read a study that showed that more than 50% of policyholders report that they have not interacted with their agent or their carrier. And I was left wondering, how is this possible? Because at a minimum, they're receiving payment notices and annual statements, and then the light bulb clicked on again. This is our customers telling us that they want more and different. They want engagement and they want experience. This is a great opportunity that we have, and it can seem contradictory, and that's why it's so revolutionary, that the same technology that makes us cringe as we try to pry our children's eyes from their screens is redefining what we mean by customer engagement and giving us amazing opportunities. Einstein said that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we use to create them. We need diverse voices around our tables and the views of people outside our industry to help us think differently. And that's why I'm so grateful that today we have Jane Wang with us from Optimity. She's at the center of insurtech and wellness trends that are helping to shape the future of our industry. Over to you, Jane.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we were just talking earlier as well about all these, the intersection of human touch and the blend of technology, and how we're now living in this hybrid world where we have the opportunity to make things better instead of more disconnected. So yeah, we're living in interesting and energizing times indeed. A little bit of background. So on the day-to-day, I am actively working with the chief marketing officers or chief product and distribution leaders at carriers to engage customers, and mostly to deliver value through health and wellness engagement. So Optimity itself is an enterprise wellness platform, but it's 100% focused on life and health carrier use cases and engaging their carrier basic policyholders in a very authentic but modern and joy-adding ways to maximize lifetime value. And what I bring to that thinking, to that vision, to your point, Vesta, is the customer experience I kind of think about it as patient management as well. So when we manage patients, I did trials for HIV, ovarian cancer, MS, and Alzheimer's. And when we look at patients, it's often coming from a health management. So when they do get sick, what do we do about it? We're not approaching it at an early enough point to be proactive. And at the point when we are approaching it, the driver and you and I talked about this, Vesta, is mostly fear, and fear is a great motivator. But on the other side, a big motivator is also love and joy. So the way that we're approaching proactive health and improving mortality and morbidity is to bring in some joy and to make things fun. And of course, there's the technology aspect of it too, because we're creating a health score using very holistic aspects. So this is not just looking at physical health, but mental health and social connectedness in terms of longevity, financial wellness also as a big stressor, as well as nutrition. So supporting the user's life journey as they have children, as they have different types of changes in their lives, and adding positive daily micro interactions to improve their overall quality of life. So today's topic is about engaging the customers, and I think you're exactly on point in talking about knowing the customer and the customer 360. It's a table stake, and but what the brokers and the agents need is a enriched data set, a data set that is not just collected information from the time of application. Because just like if you're going to make a diagnosis to a patient, you kind of need to know what they've been up to, how they have been feeling, what's going on. And the old way of doing it is, yes, you show up with a condition, and then now while you're in pain, I'm asking you to give me information about, if I was a doctor, the information about, your health, what's going on, what's the life trend, what has changed. And at that point, the perspective has changed, and it's not the best data. What you really want is almost a journal of someone's life. So instead of having a distorted picture of someone at the time you're interacting with them when they're in distress, it's about shifting that point to having a continuous journal, a continuous video, if you will. So we call that 4-dimensional data. And this is what a platform like Optimity or any sort of wellness platform allows the carriers to do, is to have that snapshot continuously and to be able to truly engage with the customers even before they have that condition arise. So some of the work that we've done to kind of hybridize the interaction is we have a Salesforce app beta, which has visualizes information about people's life goals and their health goals, and also simultaneously shows the agent the difference between the coverage needs and where they should be. So it's a proactive approach of suggesting something, and it also allows them to connect it into have a more meaningful conversation with the person, because that person perhaps is planning to have kids in the next 5 years, or planning to buy a house, or doing all kinds of stuff. And I think another aspect of what you were talking about, Vesta, is also really interesting, which is earning the right of having that frequent conversation. And I think earning that right at a time of critical information, like a critical event, is doubly, triply, 10 times as hard. What the gaming industry has done very well, and you'll hear me refer to this a lot because my whole team came from the gaming industry, right? So like the co-founder of all these games, and we were talking through how Zynga worked, or how EA Games worked, and how Fortnite worked, and all of this is when you bring people together and when you introduce elements of joy within the time of seconds and you give them rewards, and these rewards doesn't necessarily have to be monetary. So for example, on our platform, the rate of completing a health risk assessment is over 50%. And that is not incentivized. And that's where, we really get the attention of people, because it's about how do you bring that to bring value to them. Oh, can you give them a score? Can you give them recommendations that make sense for them? So it's about a data exchange and about how are you coaching them through that, and are you challenging them? So one of the best features on Fortnite, for example, is all these weekly challenges or daily challenges. It really changes how someone interacts with it. And then the last point that I want to talk about is about community. And the sense of community and the schema of community is actually embedded in the DNA of insurance. And I don't come from the insurance industry. I've been in it for the last 5 years. But what I found really fascinating is that a lot of the insurance started as mutuals, right? Like it's really that community piece and coming together and supporting those in need. And that as we kind of move towards more, let's say, numerical or fast pace, we are now looking at, and this is not just the insurance industry, I'm talking about the world in general, is more disconnected and lonely, right? There's multiple studies that have been, people are doing on people that live in condos and in urban areas, and how you don't know your neighbors, and how for millennials, besides car accidents, the second highest rate of death, cause of death, is suicide. So it's kind of morbid to talk about, but for someone that looks at mortality, it's kind of interesting because it's that social connectedness that we all crave. And one of the things that the gaming industry has done really well is bring in that connectedness despite where you are, right? You can play with other people. So we brought that into wellness as well, which is doing activities with friends, having that buddy system, and having those connectedness, and having people that support you, and you really kind of having that virtual cycle. And it also happens to be one of the most cost-effective ways to keep a population healthy. So deploying kind of the gaming mechanisms to design the cost, almost the customer interaction, but the community interaction, has been a very gratifying but also surprising learning for us. So the last point that I want to conclude with, I suppose, is really talking about why maximize engagement. Because when I started talking about wellness, and this is at the time where Fitbit was just coming out and Apple was just making their data available and all this stuff, people were really kind of talking about, there's two groups of people that were talking about wellness. The first group of people were talking about wellness because they're in marketing, right? It's a really great conversation starter. Everyone understands, and everyone's interested in health to some degree. So it's like it's marketing. And then the second group that really liked it were risk specialists. So like my favorite people are some actuaries and the people in reinsurance companies that cared about mortality and morbidity. And it's a long-term bet, right? It's a 20-year bet on where those things are going to go. So it somehow, I felt that those two are very interesting for wellness, but it actually made wellness kind of a nice to have, right? So like it's a nice to have. It's kind of gimmicky a lot of times within insurance, and it had no ROI. And it's something that people know that we should do, but maybe sometime down, next quarter, next year, or whatnot. Where I found there's a really big difference is when we started turning wellness into a need to have. When we started really hammering down, you'll be surprised how quantitative game makers are, actually, because they make, most of the games are freemium, right? And they make the money from conversions, and it's all funnels for them. So it's actually really interesting, because when we started focusing on driving ROI for life and health companies, we found that we turned wellness into a need to have, not by just the health outcomes, because that does come and that comes later, But what really drives it today as a need to have is the customer acquisition part, because we're now introducing elements of viral acquisition. And we last year we did a talk at InsurTech, and I talking about, you know, how it's going to, it basically revolutionized the way the cost. So on digital now, what, it's $1,000 to $2,000 to get someone to the time of application, because of the oligopoly between Google and Amazon and all those things. And then how a loyalty program, right? Like wellness rewards programs, like Optimity is kind of like a loyalty program, is actually changing the customer acquisition through viral acquisition to about $100 to $200 per person. So that's just super different to get to the time of application. So finding short-term ROIs is really interesting. And also the selection part too, because the community, you know, people tend to bring in healthier people. It's people that are already health conscious. When they're doing that, there is a bit of selection in there. I find that really interesting because it changed the timelines for wellness. And I'm all for that, because we need to change. Globally, our generation, we're not living as long as, you know, the generation before. And I think this is a very critical time, and insurance is really, very exciting, because we're able to do that in a very aligned organizational way to really affect population health and population mortality and morbidity. So I'll turn that back to Margaret.
Well, Jane, thank you so much. And thank you, Vesta, for your compelling messages. You're thought-provoking, and you're passionate, and you're provocative. And we appreciate your viewpoints here. And it struck me as I was listening to both of your comments, how easily you segued from words like love and joy and fun and care to data visualization and four-dimensional data and gamification and data sets. And it really was holistic, and you both are holistic and game-changing in your work. So I'm going to ask everyone out here in the audience to think about some questions for you. We have some time here this morning to have a robust dialogue. So please, all of you who are listening with us today, please send through your questions. We're anxious to hear your questions, your comments, your reactions. And allow me to tee this up a little bit so we can get the creative juices flowing. So let's take a page from both of your comments, Vesta and Jane. You talked a lot about how to blend technology, data, and the human touch. You talked about community and journey. Can you really tell us how to do it? I think that's the big billion-dollar question. We're looking for ways, we're looking for vehicles, we're looking for a pathway. Can you start maybe, Vesta, and how do you start on that pathway?
A big question. I'll start by just telling a story which had the outcome that I did not anticipate. I asked my daughter, who's college age, to be a secret shopper. I told her that I would pay the premium for her policy. I just wanted her to go through the process without my assistance or assistance from her father. I thought that as a millennial, that she would find the whole process long, boring, frustrating, but the results were the opposite. She had several meetings with an agent all along the way, getting a financial education. She was really paying attention. She didn't object to the number of times, the amount of time it took, that it was a physical meeting rather than a FaceTime or a Skype meeting. The part that she didn't understand about the whole process was, why did she get a physical policy? And her concern was that she would put it under her bed with the rest of the stuff that she keeps under there. It appears to be her storage cabinet. And if something happened to me and her father, where would it be? How could she access those benefits? And she was describing that she recognized that it was okay because she had the name of the agent and a relationship. And Jane, to your point, through that process, our agent has earned the right to be with her at critical events in her life. I showed her the app on her phone and how it is that she could watch things as they were progressing in her own policy. And this was this blending of what was very technological with the comfort of a person who would be there. So she's really surprised me in terms of her reactions to what we may be criticizing sometimes as parts of the stodgier, longer processes that we still have in our industry. I'm really continuing to think through what are the ways in which we are able to keep blending what is so beautiful about what we have in our industry and why it's existed for so many years with what are the other capabilities that we can add to that process, and what is it going to look like for her as a policyholder over the next couple of decades. What are the things that we can do that will really enhance the experience that she has, promote her community and her longevity?
Thank you so much, Vesta, for that story and sharing it. And Jane, I'm going to turn over to you. We have a comment and a question here for you. So the comment is to you, Jane, amazing success story. And now, would you explain to the audience about short-term ROI, that terminology? Could you give us some background on that?
Sure. So when people, well, we are classified as a technology buy, right? So we're classified as a software as a service, and oftentimes they're like, what do you buy it for? What's the pain that it solves? And we're really like a member benefit. We're a loyalty system. We're a way to reward someone while they're not sick, while they're not making a claim, and to bring them together and make them more sticky and to enjoy. So we have this really interesting thing where the end customer is the user, and the person that pays is the carrier. But the carrier needs to have a benefit from it too. So often when you have not the same user beneficiary and the person that's paying, you have this weird dynamic. So when we calculate ROI, yes, there is a argument to be made that we can show changes in health grade. So basically showing that in the future they will have morbidity and mortality changes. But that takes years to measure. So even in the clinical trial sense, the shortest ones that we could do quantitatively really are around 2 years. So we now have 5 years of data, so we do show that. But for the insurance company, a lot of of people from heavy data science, we're really thinking about like 10 years, show me 10 years of data, 20 years of data. And that's just not good enough right now to adopt something. So when we look at short-term ROI, we look at something that we can show within 6 weeks, right? 6 months, something that you can explain to a head of distribution and head of marketing. Oh, I love head of marketing and head of distribution and product too, because there's a clarity to why they are buying certain types of help, right? Consulting help, technology, anything like that. And we ask them what their problems are, and then it happened to be the problems were cost of acquisition going up year after year because digital ads. Everyone has now become digital, and they're having things on Facebook and LinkedIn and Google and so on. It's not any cheaper, and it's not any, it's getting more expensive. And then the other things that they also have issues with is cross-sell, right? We talk about cross-sell a lot, and making an offer or doing anything like that, I think right now it's underexplored in the group health space so much with voluntary policies. I can share some numbers from North America, but I'm just in general, there's nobody, and these are great excellent carriers that we work with, not to call anyone out, but I'm just saying there's nobody that has like an average policy number of 2. Okay, so it hovers between like 1.01 to like 1.5 policies. And I find that really fascinating because you have relationships and sometimes arguable lifetime relationships. Why is that not turned into a financial thing? And yeah, so it's very clear now that we've earned the right to talk to the user on a daily basis in terms of like a rewarding experience. Why should we not also have the right to help educate them? So we do a lot of education, which is very effective in terms of cost too. So there's an ROI measure on that. And then also to make an offer sometimes when it makes sense. So it's a more complex discussion depending on what type of carrier you are. If you're life and annuities, if you're individual, if you're a group, it's a longer discussion. But I hope that gave you some color about how we look at ROI. It's a way to have a big impact on the world long term, but have a big impact in terms of business for the people that are running sales and that are running marketing for the carrier.
Absolutely, Jane. And let's keep on that topic of real time and relationships and impact. And we have another question for both of you. What is the best way to use social media to create engagement with customers and potential customers? Vesta, do you want to start?
I'll just say I'm not a social media expert. However, one of the things which is fantastic for us is focusing on customer segments that are really important and underserved, and then engaging them in a different way. At National Life, we serve many, many teachers and believe that they need to retire with dignity. And we run different events, programs that really honor the work that they do. And many of those activities you can find on social media. One of the nuts that we haven't cracked is really with our distribution force. How do we get them to be more savvy in the social space? And how is it that we're using basic technologies to create different kinds of networks? An example that I'll give you is our customer mobile app, which has a tremendous value to play in a sale process, making physical what is an intangible product, often giving people confidence and that happiness as they see their finances improving. And we can also take another step forward, which we haven't yet, which is if you want to refer to a friend, how do you do that from your device or different social media platforms? I think our industry is still at the beginning steps of understanding what's the interconnectedness of different aspects of social media. How do we use it in the sales process? And how is it that we use it when we have acquired customers to make sure that they continue to have those moments of delight and connection, building different kinds of communities and resources for them?
Good. Thank you. Jane, we'd love to hear from you about your social media perspectives and strategies.
I have a similar perspective to Vesta, actually. I'm not a social media expert because I have a pretty big distrust of Facebook and how it uses my data. So I'm kind of skeptical. So I do think that I think it's really important. So depends on who's asking this question. So when we talk about, I mean, we have social elements in what we do, and we definitely do connect to Facebook and LinkedIn and things like that. But do we rely on them? Do we go onto that platform to do certain things? I think it depends on who we're trying to connect with and how it's done. And I think the voice is a lot stronger. So how we do it, I mean, we're trying to answer different questions. I mean, for us, it's about generating viral contacts and be able to share some of the things that we do. I feel like if you go onto the social platforms for the sake that everybody else is on those social platforms and you're going to do that, you're going to get lost in the noise. And that's how you spend a lot of money and pour a lot of money to do something that's kind of table stakes, and that maybe you're not even, it's not your strength. You're not measuring, where there is a strength with insurance companies on bringing people in is the fact that there is a pool of in-force policyholders, and there are people in there that want to be connected to in a way that's authentic and that's useful. And earlier Vesta talked about 50% of the policyholders are like orphaned, or they say that they're orphaned, even though they're getting notices, and they probably did get a call from the agent, but that call wasn't significant and it wasn't joyful enough. And I think the trick to social media, if you look at it, people only share the positive and super surprising and thing about their life. So you need to give that to them and give them the opportunity to do that. So we often do have people share their health achievements and wellness achievements and when they get a reward or anything like that. So those are the triggers that will be a really good time for someone to share. Oftentimes people will not share when a loved one, like, yes, you'll share in a very private way, but it's not, when my mom passed away, I didn't share it on social media. That's not something I did. So really kind of thinking about the other side of the coin and how you want to use social media and what is the impact. And I would say it's better to build your own community, which is our approach, instead of going on to somebody else's price comparison site or anything like that, or being just an ad, interrupting their life with an ad that they see. Why don't we create a loyal, captured community that you're drip marketing into, right? Because essentially that's what it is. And I don't know. I think it's built on first principles, and it really depends on who the person who's asking that question. And I would encourage you to I'm happy to have a longer conversation about this.
Thank you. And that was excellent points there, Jane. So I'd like to put the spotlight with this next question back to data. So our question is, how do you balance between privacy and data access for risk mitigation and customer engagement?
I mean, I can start since
yes, please, Jane. Thank you.
I triggered it probably. It's fine. I love talking about this actually. So two things. One is that high personal integrity, I think, is really important, starting from the perspective of what I want to have done with my data, and planning from there. And I know that it's easier to say that because I have control over my firm and policies, but I do think that starts from each person. If each person thought that way, the world would be a great place. The second part, it is about following policies. We're fully HIPAA compliant, PIPEDA compliant, GDPR. I think it's really interesting when you look at these policies, which are people that thought a long time about data, what could be used and what cannot be used. So following that also kind of helps set the bar. And then in terms of what's used for marketing and what's used for other stuff, you can't use health specific. Like I can't use someone's heart rate for marketing, but what is pretty good is a health grade. So it's kind of like a general FICO score type of thinking. So we do use that. We populate that into the Salesforce app or into any other. You may be on some sort of other CRM. And then I do want to mention the last part about what you can use with data, because I kind of love this. This is more about customer segmentation, and I'm sure, Vesta, you have lots to say about this too. But we do a lot of persona setting, so that's another thing that games do really well. So because of the freemium culture of things, and because you're interacting with it so frequently, there's just such a richness of data. So for example, even for us, last year we worked with 6 carriers and we had over 3 million data points that we could use in proactive offers, and that's just it's so rich. And what you do with that is that you can use that for putting people into the right buckets and helping them lead other people. So what we talk about is that we have to use a buzzword, but it's machine learning. It's it's the same thing as a Netflix kind of recommendation. How it works, there's a lot of published data about that. There's not a lot of published data about what we do, but you can go look at the Netflix recommendation engine. It was actually a contest, but it's the same mechanism of very similar to what we use. You take the power users, so someone that's really likes comedy or TV shows or whatever, and then they've watched, let's say, 1,000 hours of it, and then you take someone who's just beginning, who looks a lot like that person, and you push them onto that journey, and it's a lot easier. It's very fluid, and a machine can do like millions of those matches, right? In a couple seconds. So that's where the volume. This is where the 4-dimensional data, because it helps you with volume of data instead of a captured at a certain time, the volume of data allows you to see people's progression and allow you to pick out your best people or the people that have the best patterns. And then you can go back and create user flows and click flows and workflows, okay? Or like even involving the call agent that maximizes the chance of other people following that successful path. So I think data is beautiful in doing that.
And here to that, Vesta, any thoughts that you have on the privacy and data issue?
I would just say we're very fortunate that we live in a regulated industry where there are a wide range of people who have thought through and continue to think through and evolve how it is that we need to protect the data, which kinds of data that we need to protect. And all of us have the obligation to follow not just the letter, but also the spirit of those regulations, and for us to work so that we continue to evolve the regulations. Underwriting, for example, changing tremendously with the use of different kinds of third-party data. Jane, you're pointing out concerns about the FANG and how they use our data, and us just being incredibly clear about the sorts of rules engines that we're building so that we are not inadvertently discriminating against any kind of customer. Data is just so fundamental to everything that we do. One of the reasons that I called out folks that work with data infrastructure and governance as unsung heroines and heroes is that our industry is data rich. It should feel like to us this amazing candy store that we're in, but the problem is often that when we look for one kind of candy, it's all jumbled up with other kinds of candy. So it's not the kind of candy store you want to go into because you're not going to get your order fulfilled well. And that's why so many of us love what Jane is talking about and want to run as fast as we can to it. But we have a lot of work to do just making sure that we have all of the subject matter experts, the data stewards who own different kinds of data and are very clear about what it means, where it lives, so that they can help us when we want to run analyses to make sure that what we're looking at, the basis upon which we want to make decisions, is accurate. So tons of work going on to make sure we have the proper infrastructure, understanding of the data, and building towards how do we connect with different kinds of data as well as third-party data and be comfortable that in that process we are properly protecting all of our customers.
Thank you, Vesta. And let's take this a little bigger and broader because we have some trending going on with our questions. So here's a big multi-layered question for both of you and some comments from the audience. So comment first. Today, insurance companies do not have a warm relationship with their customers. And thought-provoking question. How can insurance companies engage? So let's think about that. So the next question I'm going to tag on to that one is, if you were to describe what customer engagement for life and health insurance companies looks like 5 years out, how would you describe it? Jane, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. I think, well, yeah, for us, we live in serving life and health all day. So I think we really kind of thought through a lot of use cases within the platform. So I can probably answer the first question with a demo. Um, and I think, there's a lot of different layers to it. It is a complex, or it's a complex industry, and it does need a lot of smart minds to decomplex it. And one of the ways to engage with someone is to get to their level. So one of the things that we do is micro interactions, even like micro learning. Um, and it's always triggered by the user as well. And I remember Vesta talking about that as well. We were very respectful of, it's more about a magnet strategy, attracting someone, versus a push strategy, even though push notifications, we grossly classify as part of our magnet strategy. But I think that's kind of fun. I think with the users, or with the policyholders, it's really, offering them value from the point when they are currently healthy, because usually when they buy the policy, they have aspirations. They're doing it for a life goal. They're doing it towards something positive. It is, yes, it is a peace of mind, but I tend to argue that uh, our generation tend to kind of also think more holistically, because we did get to get access to the internet, and we do digest a lot of information, so people are thinking forward. But it's about how do you cut through that age of distraction and miniaturize that. So micro interactions has been huge for us. And then those interactions, can you build that now is testing you as smart people. Can you schematically pull it together into a curriculum? And I think that's where gamification is a really great place, because it's not really about gamification. This is more about like behavior economics, right? So can you help someone who's interested in, for example, in just like looking great, like I'm getting married this year, like looking great in my wedding dress, right? That's kind of my short-term thing. And how do you get someone like that to be also interested in financial wellness, right? It's so, and I'll refer back to my Netflix example again. It's like, yeah, okay, well, if you want to introduce like, let's say, action to someone who likes comedy, you find the intersection. So, right, you start suggesting things like action comedy movies and things that have that. So, in terms of engagement, it's kind of bringing it down to that person's level, satisfying, giving them exactly what they need in the very short term, but as you get delivering that message. So I'm sure most of you have played games before, right? As you're playing games and as you're waiting for that next level to load, there is a display message there that says, did you know, right? Did you know that you can get more orbs out of the chest? Oh, did you know that if you dropped in this area, you'll get more points? So it's a really great place to micro educate somebody, and we use that science to connect with someone. And then that, small steps build into really large things over, just a period of, I would say, 6 weeks, but really more so in 6 months, a year, 2 years. We retain about 40% of our users after a year, which is really astronomical. And I actually, credit a lot of that to the community portion of it. But then you have a real chance of educating someone. And then you also know a lot more about that person, so that when you do have a conversation with them on the phone, a real human interaction, you better, be using that information to deliver value to them in a way that, the digital wouldn't be able to. So that's the hybrid part too.
We said it was a big question. And Vesta, I'm going to pivot off of that for the life industry for you, because we have a very real and provocative comment that says the life insurance industry isn't as sexy as some other industries or product sets.
No,
so how do you engage?
I don't agree.
So Vesta, how do you react to that one?
I don't agree. I don't know, Vesta, you should go, because I don't agree.
Well, thank you for that, Jane. And I am sure Vesta says a big thank you as well.
It may be true. It's certainly true from that person's perspective. And again, if you go read studies and look at how we show up, I'm just going to work from the assumption that it is true and really ask ourselves if this is the image. And I would say I've heard many descriptions of the image of insurance as a whole, never mind life insurance specifically. Let's just start by looking in a mirror that might be really hard and saying, that's true. So what are we going to do about it? That's what I'm a lot more focused on. I really can't see 5 years out. Things are moving so quickly. What I do think is that all of us need to engage and create a different perspective. What I want is that every time someone interacts with an insurance carrier, an agent, someone in our industry, that what they're feeling is that the person they're talking to has a genuine interest in them. We work within National Life with the concepts of vulnerability and what is it to empathize and how are you going to connect with people. And if whenever we're talking to a customer, we're connecting with where they are emotionally, understanding what's the activity that needs to be completed, completing it, and thinking, feeling that our job is first and foremost to make sure that when that interaction has completed, that our customer feels better. If we do that consistently, then the image that people have of our industry will change dramatically. There's product innovations that will help, but fundamentally, I really do believe it's how we show up each and every day. Jane said something fascinating when we were talking last week, which was that there's just not enough happiness in staying healthy. And that really resonated with me. There needs to be much more happiness in staying healthy, not just physically, but financially, emotionally. And I think that going back to the example of my daughter, that there's all sorts of things that we can do that will make that interaction one that is very meaningful for her. So giving her access to different kinds of wellness services that are tailored to each stage of her life. If she wants to interact with us, knowing that there will be a live person or a virtual person, or she can text someone, that we're just open to building that connection in all the ways that she wants to interact with us. I'm not content with the image that our industry has. That's why I am so passionate about this being such a special time in our industry's lives. Let's just accept those perspectives as that's where we begin. Well, we have all around us so many industries that have been pioneering. We can just take those best practices, figure out a way in which to adapt them, and together we can have these collective conversations so that the changes that we're going through feel very positive to us, and that we're proactive in changing the perceptions that people have of our industry.
Well, thank you, Vesta. And thank you, Jane. What a rich and compelling, inspiring, practical dialogue that we had this morning. And I certainly want to formally thank you on behalf of Insurance Nexus and our audience. You made us better, you made us smarter, you made us think. So we thank you for your time today. So a big round of applause to you, Jane Wang, CEO of Optimity, and you, Vesta Bovair, Head of Customer Innovation at National Life Group. It was such a pleasure to learn from both of you this morning, and I wish you all a terrific day. Let's go change the world. Bye-bye, everyone.